Well, hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Levi.
And I'm Jennie.
And we're your hosts today.
Oh.
And we want to say Happy New Year, 2025.
We do want to say
Look
that.
at us, all grown up and doing a podcast. Happy New Year to every single human.
Handsome and
thank you.
Dapper.
It's nice that we're at a quarter mark for the century. We're a quarter of the way through this century, Jennie.
Oh, wow.
That's exciting.
That's interesting. I never hadn't
think of
thought
it that
about
way?
that.
Just 75 more years to go to 2200. That's going to be a crazy age. I'm looking forward to it.
Wait, to 2200?
2100.
2100. Okay.
That makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, that is weird. That's a long ways away.
2200.
Hold on.
20.
Just 125 years to go to 2200.
Yeah.
I will have robot legs attached to my head. I'll walk around and it'll just be my head. That'll be like think about a tarantula with a head.
No.
No?
No, thank you.
You don't want that?
No.
I was crossing, I was two things in my mind as I was talking. I was
Sid.
thinking the alien from Simpsons
Uh-huh.
and Sid from Toy Story,
Yeah.
the baby
The
with
creepy baby doll
creepy
head
baby with
on the spider legs.
Put those two together, and that's going to
and
be
what do
me,
you get?
Levi Lusko in 2200 AD.
Gross.
It's going to be very exciting. A lot to look forward to.
Oh, gross.
On that note, today's episode is huge. It's groundbreaking, really, if you think about it, because we never, ever, ever had previously done a live stream episode of Hey Luskos.
True.
Then we went and did it, and it was great.
It was great.
We got on the YouTubes, Instagramatron, Facebook Associated, Facebook Eponymous Associated, I should say. And we just talked for a while, and we had people coming in, asking questions, putting comments. It was all live, and then we bottled it all up, and that's the podcast today.
It was really fun.
And we're already looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
So look out for the announcement of when that's coming. We are going to do it again, and then we'll be able to chat, talk, hang. It's a good time. And then we will, again, put it out there. But today we really quickly, before we play the episode, want to talk about you in 5 years. I know it's 2025, but hey, 2030 is coming. And the question we should be asking is, who are we going to be by 2030? You just go, Levi, I want to be someone different by next year. Well, chill out, bro. That's not enough time to make substantive change. A lot of times we underestimate the change we can make in a longer period, and we overestimate the change we can make in a shorter period.
Right.
So instead of being like, hey, new me by 2026, no, we should be asking the question, who could I become if I do small things over the next 5 years? And 2030 comes and bam.
Wow.
Slow slicing
25,
success,
26,
sucker.
29.
So,
5 years from 2025 is 2029.
Are you sure? No, because it's going to be
2025,
2026. No, you don't count 2025.
2028, 2029.
No, you don't count 2025.
Oh, you
It's
don't?
already 2025.
Oh.
So 26, 7, 8, 9, 30.
Oh, but we have a whole 2025 year ahead of us.
But the year takes you to 26.
Oh.
1 year, boom, 26.
So 1,
1
2,
year,
3. Got it.
2030.
Okay, thank you.
So we put together 2 resources. They all are meant to help you achieve that.
Yeah.
One is I preached a sermon series twice now. The last 10 years, I've done this twice. You in 5 years.
Yeah.
And the link is in the show notes. It's a series of messages that will help you to ask the question, who can I become in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
And then secondly, a free PDF. If you're watching the video, you can see it's printed out here. It's a vision plan to mapping out your plan of attack for the next 5 years.
I haven't seen this.
You haven't seen it? You're
No.
suspicious?
I'm excited.
Basically, it's a companion to the series that will help you put pen to paper on the vision and goals that you have as you take steps towards becoming the person that God's called you to
Is
be.
this going to be a little booklet?
You can be whatever you want. You can put it on your iPad and write on it with your Apple Pencil. You can print it out like we have here. You can use it to basically say, hey, look, who do I want to be in 5 years? And what are the small little bites I need to take to get there
That's so cool.
eventually?
Love it.
So we
Good
want
job.
to just help you, attack this year. You can get both of these at the link in the show notes, Spotify, podcast, access more, all of the above. You can go down and click the link to listen to those messages. And it does involve me lying on a bed of nails, having a cinder block smashed on my chest into pieces
Wow.
to illustrate.
When you say all those words, it just sounds so,
Made up.
yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I did it 10 years ago, did it 5 years ago. I don't know if I'm going to do it in 5 more years, I guess 4 more years now. But
Well, let's see. In 4 years, Lennox will be 11. I was going to say, I bet he would.
delegate the duty
I bet he would volunteer as
to
tribute.
be the one smashing the cinder block on my chest.
No, to be the one smashed on. But maybe that'll be more like
I'm going to
when
wait
he's a
till
little
he's
bit
probably
older.
20, for putting Lennox on a bed of nails, I think. But
Although he's sturdy.
he's a ruddy young man. He's a clean old man. That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
sweetheart,
good.
I love you. I
Love
love
you.
doing this podcast with you. Grateful for.
And I do have a question. You said you want to attack the year. It sounds very violent. What do you mean by attacking the year ahead of you?
Slashing at it with a sword and a shield.
What if you want to receive it with love?
And kindness?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the difference between me and you, baby. You want to hug the new year and tell it you love it. I want to fight it.
Well, it's a good thing we're married.
Bring it into captivity. Subdue
We're
it.
covering all the bases.
The Lord is a warrior, and I was created in his image. And then once I attack it, you can hug it, put a throw rug down and burn a candle in the corner and, make it our home. I have to conquer the land.
Heal its wounds?
I guess so. I have to conquer the land and subdue it, and then you get to nest there in the new year.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Do you like that?
It's not like you're killing the year. You're attacking the ground that you're walking on.
I think you're overthinking it. I'm just saying you got to take. You have to have some fight if the new year's not going to be the same as the old year.
True. Good word.
To grow, to take some hills, to drive out some giants. It's the land of milk and honey, but we got to take it.
Yeah.
I like that. The Bible says the Lord crowns the new year with goodness.
I love that verse.
The promise and the thought. Is that Psalm 65?
I don't know.
I think so.
I think so.
All right, friends, enjoy this conversation. We are grateful for all you Lusketeers and excited for this new year of growth.
We're hugging you in our hearts in this new year.
I'm not attacking nobody. I knew where you were going with that. I'm joining Jennie in the hug. Blessings.
If you're just joining in, this is a new thing we've done. We're doing live Q&A. So if you have any questions or topics or things that you want us to answer, you can drop your questions in the chat.
Okay, so we're going to start in 1 second. We're going to start the live Q&A, question and response, live stream. Thanks for coming on.
Question and answer.
Are there people on? Do we have people? Oh, good. We have people enjoying.
Q&A.
So before we start our question response episode, are you going to sing the jingle?
I don't even know our jingle.
Hey, it's Luskos. Hey, it's Luskos.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
That's exactly what it sounds like. All right. Well, welcome to this live episode. We're streaming live. We're enjoying time together. We're enjoying time together.
Yeah,
First
this
of
is
all,
like a little date.
it is like a little date.
Yeah.
Just you, me, and the Lusketeers.
And all of you.
Okay. So what should we start with, Jax?
All right. Well, first off, JD Dano from Instagram wants to know, what are your thoughts on the race to the moon and Mars?
I have no thoughts.
Like
you have thoughts.
The current one?
I assume so.
Man, I'm not as good at keeping up with all the current history, the current stuff. I wait till it becomes history. So talk to me in 20 years
and then
about
you
it.
love it.
I am so head down right now on some publishing projects. I have been not as focused on the current stuff. I know with SpaceX and with what's the other one? Boeing's got one.
I got nothing.
No, I mean there's so many.
I know,
hats
but I
in the
just
game,
don't. I can't help you.
Games and hats in the ring right now. I don't have a lot of new thoughts. I am excited by it all, of course. I think it's exciting that the horizons are continually being extended, but I have been very, very focused on a couple publishing projects that all my spare time that might have been spent nerding out on what is happening with the races has not been going. Plus, I am worse with current events than I am with
I don't think so.
old stuff.
I feel like you're good at current events, but on that note, be excited and get ready for the next Levi Lusko project.
I have a new book coming out on April 1st, and I'm really thrilled about it.
Me too.
And I've been working on it for a couple of years, all of 2023 and all of 2024
I just got
so
flutters
far.
in my heart.
Why?
Because I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
I love this book.
So all my spare time, for the most part, last couple of years has been going into this passion project, and I'm excited. It's coming out April 1st.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a little spilling of the beans, but yeah, so I've not been studying the race to Mars. Oh, please, if you do have a question, put where you're from. We always love hearing where you're from.
Yes.
Please do include that.
We always love that.
Where in the world you live, Carmen Sandiego.
But thank you, JD. And sorry, we don't have much to say about that.
My thoughts are, I'm thrilled and excited that we're continually expanding our horizons. That's my thoughts.
It's good.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. And that actually perfectly segues us into another question from Chantel Baldwin on IG, Instagram. Where do you start when you write a book?
Okay, is this Chantel in Alaska? Because if it is, we love you.
At the beginning.
At the beginning.
Is the only way to say that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you wrote, yours came out of your journals.
Mine came out of my journals.
Actually, that's kind of your MO. You love writing out of your journals.
I love writing in my journals, and I feel like stuff that's in there sometimes comes out, but yeah.
Through the
Where do
Eyes
you
of a Lion
start?
was the same way for me.
Yeah.
I started writing out of the overflow. So when I wrote Through the Eyes of a Lion, I took 365 journal entries and looked through it to see what resonated, what felt weighty, and what felt like this needs to be given. What would I want to give to someone who had just lost a loved one? And I sifted through, I think it was 90,000 words at that time, that document of that journal.
Because you had written every single day.
Yeah, so Pastor Stephen Furtick, right after Lenny went to heaven, just said he felt like the Lord was telling him that God had given us a mantle, and the mantle was we were going to teach our generation how to suffer.
Yeah.
And he didn't say it weirdly, or his eyes didn't roll back in his head. He just felt that. And that resonated with me, that landed in my heart, that there was something about Lenya going to heaven that was going to be instructive to us in a way that would give footsteps in the snow for other people.
Yeah.
So I just determined not to lose anything that I had collected in the next years. I knew God would take us through a grief journey. And I wanted anything that encouraged me, anything that God showed me in his word, anything that was hard or helpful, I just kept track of.
Yeah.
And we took that later on, and that formed the bones of the book. And it's actually pretty cool now because this summer we hit 10 years of the book being out.
So crazy.
And there is a very exciting future for a next step for Through the Eyes of a Lion. I can't tip my hat on that yet, but tip my hand. I can't tip my hat. But we have some exciting.
You just tipped your hand a little bit, tiny bit.
A little bit. There's things in the works for Through the Eyes of a Lion as well that will continue to get around this message getting out.
Yeah,
So,
but what I hear you saying is a message, a theme that God has done in you that you feel like you can't not write it out, and maybe whether it does become a book or it doesn't, like. That's where it is. It's the message of your life that God's done in you.
And they're all different. So Eyes of a Lion was that way. I Declare War was just me being so frustrated that I would not be in control of myself the way I wanted to once I got in a bad mood.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still a struggle, but that book was my...
Same.
I took a test of emotional intelligence, and I was so shocked with how low I scored. And I was so frustrated at that because I was always a good test taker. And I just determined I'm gonna work on this area. I'm gonna see the Lord work on this area of emotional intelligence. Because they say it is as much as 60% or 70% of success in any endeavor comes down to not IQ, but EQ.
Yeah.
And the particular test I had bought said you could work on it and then take it again in 6 months. And so I resolved to grow in this area. I did. I took the test again. I had brought my scores up in all the areas that I was low. And that just began a little pet project of me trying to grow at my emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Socially.
Which brings so much hope because we all need to grow in certain areas, but I love that is something that we're not stuck in. And I think that that's the message of I Declare War is you're not stuck where you are.
Yeah.
And you're able to grow and move forward and change.
And then I kept all those notes again that I was learning, and that became the 4 keys to winning the battle with yourself. But then having a loose frame of reference in mind of where I'm going with it, then I just sit down and actually get down to writing it. And when I'm writing it, I always have a 1,000-word or 2,000-word goal. And when I have a writing day, which would be 6 days a week, every day but Sunday, I never write on Sundays. And
because you're preaching on Sunday.
Yeah, I got a day job on Sundays.
So you're writing, but also writing a message.
Yeah, but writing's not my job. My job is pastoring Fresh Life. Writing's a thing I do before my day job or after my day job.
Yeah.
So I'll sit down 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. or whatever the time works out to be, and I will say I'm writing 1,000 words now or 2,000 words now. Every book's different. With Last Supper on the Moon, it was 2,000 word chunks. With several of the books, it's been 1,000 words, but I'll just write 1,000 words. And it's not, do I feel like writing it? It's, I'm going to write 1,000 words. And when I'm done with 1,000 words, I'm done with writing for the day. And I don't think about it. I don't edit. I don't research. I don't say, was it good? I just walk on it and move on and do the next thing. And then later on, when there's editing, which always comes from me a month or so after I finish the book, I come back and read it and go, is this any good? You know, sometimes I'm surprised by how much of it is. Other times I'm like, what was I thinking or smoking that day? Because this is crazy talk.
So bummed.
What were you saying? Please?
My brain wasn't catching up with my mouth because you don't smoke.
No, it was a metaphor.
I'm just clarifying for anyone wondering.
I don't smoke.
No, so
it's like an expression.
Sharing
what was I
with
smoking
someone
that day?
recently. Yeah, I'm sharing with someone recently because she was asking, and I will usually tell people what you do in the sense of writing every day, no matter what. I think there's so much strength in that and power in that to be able to just write. But sometimes it's hard because what's it called? The cursor is just there, like waiting for you to start.
They don't call it a cursor for nothing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But just the discipline. And I think, and that's where you shine, is just being disciplined to just do something, whether it's good or bad, and like not even thinking about that, but just going.
And it helps to have a rough outline in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And for like Swipe Right, it's actually funny. I wrote the outline to that, not to give too much information, but I wrote the whole outline to that book in the shower. And the outline I wrote is the outline that's in the book. Like I was in the shower thinking about it. I was like, oh, it could be this. And I wrote these chapter headings. And I mean, almost without exception, that's the chapter order for the book. And I had that little piece of paper. I use these Aqua Notes.
Yeah.
Shout out Aqua Notes. It's a waterproof paper and pencil you can keep in the shower. I've written more sermons. I've written more, articles,
because
book chapters.
Good ideas come in the shower.
Why is
right?
that?
There's
got to be a reason.
I think it's you're relaxed. You're
not on your phone.
Not on your phone.
There's hot water streaming down your body. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
Okay, so Olivia was telling me she saw that just hanging like eucalyptus leaves, like fresh eucalyptus leaves in your shower, just add, like, it smells good and it's pretty. I want to do that.
How big are they?
Just like a bunch, like it's a bunch just hanging from the
Where are you
spout.
supposed to come across those? It's not like eucalyptus grows in Montana.
At the store.
Which store?
Any grocery store has
Kroger's?
eucalyptus leaves.
Eucalyptus leaves? Isn't that what koala bears eat?
I don't know.
Can we Google that?
But anyways, but is this Chantel from Alaska? Okay, so Chantel.
Yes, it is.
You sent us a beautiful letter and so encouraging. You sent us some fun little things from Alaska. I don't know if you're asking because you are wondering about starting a book, but I just pray God's grace over you and what that looks like for you. You do have beautiful handwriting, by the way, and a sweet heart and sweet spirit. So I just pray
Click that
grace
picture
over
of
you.
that koala bear.
I
That's
feel like
a
there's
good-looking
different
bear.
kinds of eucalyptus, though.
Can people see that koala bear?
What's the little round leaves? Is that also eucalyptus? Or is that something different? I don't know.
Okay, moving
Anyways,
moving
doesn't
right
really
along.
matter, but it's pretty.
So hanging eucalyptus leaves in the shower, it opens your pores, gives you creative ideas. Write them down,
Just smells good.
and then just keep writing. And
Keep
keep
going.
reading.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're gonna, like, what do they say about weightlifters? Eat big to get big. You can't just go work out a ton. You have to eat a ton of calories to get big. So it is with reading and writing. If you want to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader because you need to be taking in words, taking in concepts, ideas, flow, noticing plot, noticing style, prose, all the things so that you have that at your disposal when it comes to.
Yeah. And I think also, like, in that same vein, just being aware of inspiration, because everywhere you go, there's inspiration everywhere. So it's like you go shopping, you go to a different city, you go and see art, and like things are just, anything can be inspiring. And I feel like that's helpful for me, of just like seeing a phrase on a window setting in a store or something like that. Like, I feel like, just being aware of the fact that you could be inspired by reading, obviously, yes, but also just in everything. That's helpful for me.
Very good.
Thank you, Chantel. We
I
love
love it.
you.
Wonderful. That was some great answers. This next one is one that I think might be a little juicy.
This is
Are
Jax,
you?
by the way.
Yes, this
Jax.
is Jax.
Jax.
Hi,
Giving us the
Lusketeers.
questions.
Good to talk to you. Olivia Lusko on YouTube wants
Stop.
to know, are you excited to see your favorite daughter when she comes back for Christmas break?
Whoa.
Clover's coming back from somewhere? I didn't know Clover was at college. Livy,
Wow.
if you're
Levi
alive, if you're on here
Lusko.
live, that's so amazing. I love you. I
Love
just
you,
talked to her. She just got a
Liv.
pair of new shoes.
That's amazing.
She had a gift certificate for Nikes, and she's like, "What are good running shoes?" And she went and got some, and she showed them to me.
Oh
They looked
my
great.
gosh. Can't wait to see
I
him.
am so excited that you're coming, and we're going to run 100 miles every month for the whole time you're here. It's going to be great.
You are our favorite oldest daughter named Olivia Skye Lusko.
We can't wait for you to come back, Liv.
Awesome. All right. This next one is from Longhorn17 from Texas on Instagram.
That sounds right. That adds up.
Longhorn 17.
We were just at some friend's house, and they had this Longhorn over their TV. It was a Texas Longhorn, and it was their dad's, and it's a family Longhorn. It was beautiful. I've never seen it above a TV like that.
It's so beautiful.
So there's an idea for you.
All right. Well, Longhorn17 wants to know, what's your favorite family tradition and how has it impacted your family?
I would say, just off the cuff, my favorite tradition that's just kind of a somewhat daily thing, definitely weekly thing, is just dinner at the dinner table. And it's so simple, but it really is so fun. We have a little booth that kind of goes around our table, and chairs on the other side. And sometimes, like when Levi's done eating, he just kind of lays down, and Lennox will lay down next to him. And we just talk.
We linger. We don't rush through it.
We linger. And I love it so much. And whether it's chili or pizza bought from the store or a home cooked meal that I actually made, no matter what it is, food wise, the tradition of just being together and
we dim
talking.
the light.
Mm-hmm.
We
dim the
usually
light.
put jazz on.
Jazz.
Right now it's holiday jazz.
Yeah. But the conversations that come out of it are so sweet. The kids have been asking a lot of theological questions, and I feel like that has been so special. Just kind of talking about God and what does this mean? And then we have games so we have little windowsills right next to our booth, and we have a little basket of some games. And so we have one
It's just
favorite
silly
one
ones
lately.
you could play. You could grab it's charades
Yeah.
or conversation
or
starters.
But that's just one of my favorite
I
things.
agree. I think that's great. And then we don't have phones on. It's just a great time.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say my favorite tradition is just the silliest thing that we always say goodbye to hotel rooms. Always. Goodbye hotel room. It's just this funny thing. And we end up on the road a lot, traveling a lot. And if we don't say it, one of the kids will. It's just this little silly thing. It's just it's almost like, hey, thank you, pretend home that we lived in for these last 2 days. We appreciate you and we thank you for your service.
It's so random.
Goodbye hotel
and
room.
awesome.
And then we always say, everyone minor birds it to each other.
Like it's no big deal.
Goodbye hotel room.
And we were joking one time that when the kids get married, they're
They'll be on
gonna
their honeymoon.
leave the
And they'll be like,
hotel.
goodbye hotel room. And their new spouse is going to be like, wait, what?
Who did I just marry?
That's funny. Yeah, there's lots of fun. The more,
Thank you, Longhorn 17.
The more inside jokes you can collect, the better you're doing. And those little silly traditions.
It's true.
The preach the words, because you've trained the kids. They always say preach the word to me. Linya would say preach the word, Dad, before
Give
I would
knuckles.
go to teach. We'd say it to you before you preach. Livy will text me, preach the word from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Tradition. Oh, it's a joy. It's a beautiful joy. Yeah.
I love it. That's wonderful. All right. Next, Amanda Sterney55 on Instagram wants to know, how do you navigate kids in sports while also keeping Jesus first?
It's a great question, Amanda. Thank you for asking that. I think even just the fact that you're asking it shows that you want to keep priority Jesus being the center and not sports. Because I think it's probably easy, especially with traveling sports, and Sundays are big sports days, and we haven't experienced that as much, but I've heard people who really have wrestled with that and like the tension of that.
And I would say it's a struggle because you want to give yourself over to it. You want to, you know, everything's always trying to get into this number one place in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? I didn't really finish my thought, but it wasn't really going anywhere.
I think the biggest thing is acknowledging the tension, because that's not going to be a problem to be solved. To use Stephen Covey's language, it's a tension to be managed, because you can't ever go, all right, well, we just decided, well, then football can't take the Lord's place. Well, how do you manage that tension functionally, practically? So I think when you acknowledge, okay, hey, this is something that could easily eclipse the place of God. And so then you have to, I think, say, well, what are our non-negotiables? You know, how much is too much? How, you know, because you could end up, if you have two kids on two travel sports simultaneously, they're both coming and going across the state at the same time. It's like, I'm taking Billy to, you know, this the south part of the state. You're over here with you know, Larry at this. But I mean, you could literally go months and pass like ships in the night.
Yeah.
And so I think you do have to say, like, you know, what are we called to as a family? What is, and you can be called into that.
Yeah.
If your child is on a track towards, you know, doing gymnastics at the highest level, you could be called as a family. So you don't just want to paint with a broom and go, well, then no, we're not doing that, you know, and just, it's easy to kind of get a big, the crowd goes wild. Like, but what if you are called into that world of sports and see it as part of the mission? And, you know, so I do think you have to have wise voices, community. Don't make those decisions like that in isolation.
Yeah.
You know, what does your small group think? Or how
are you going to stay connected?
How are you going to stay connected? Mm-hmm. You have to have a plan to prosper in any way with athletics or finances or whatever, and not fail spiritually. So it takes a plan. So if maybe you're Tuesday going to watch the live stream from church and get in a small group of some sort, and then you can have that opportunity with the missions out. So I just think there has to be strategy and community involved in that.
So like, if part of in order to be a part of this soccer league, like, you have to do this, like, you have to be gone on the weekends or whatever. Like, if you're faced with something like that, are you saying, like, obviously your priority, I mean, I just think, like, okay, what's the most important thing for my kids? Is it the most important thing for them to be a soccer player, or to be, like, loving Jesus and being in the house? But then I love that you're saying it's not either or necessarily. It's the tension of what the Holy Spirit's calling you to do.
Because the easy thing would be to pit them as odds against each other.
Yeah.
You know, but what about people who do end up being called vocationally into athletics? Mm-hmm. There are plenty of those.
Yeah.
And so I just think there would have to be checks and balances. There would have to be a creative approach involved in order to sense that calling and to sense that, hey, we're coming around this is our community we're going to reach into. And then and that we have people who can say, hey, I'm sensing drifting, or I'm sensing. So I would say, you know, let's say we felt like one of our kids really was being called into sports at a higher level, and we were meant to come around that. You know, we would have to really be creative and keep checking back in and see how it's going, to know that it's not, as she said, taking the place of Jesus in our lives.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that there couldn't be an integration of sports in where Jesus is at the center of how you're approaching sports.
Totally. I think that's so wise.
Because you do always hear people parrot the thing of, hey, they're not going to go pro. Only 1% of whatever goes pro. And so why, you know, and it's easy to just throw that out there, like, and be dismissive of sports just on the basis of they're not going to be going pro. But if you feel like, hey, man, us being in this community, being in this world, being around these other parents and athletes and being able to serve, and like, we've loved being able to be the tennis mom and tennis dad at the games and at the tournaments. And it's given us an opportunity to be able to show the love of Jesus and invite people in. And so I think you have to know, hey, this is always going to be pulling at us, and we have to.
Totally. No, I think that's that's good advice. And I think that you bringing up, it's not going to look the same thing for everything. So for everyone. So like if one family is doing a certain way, it doesn't mean that it's going to look that way for you. Like it really is listening to what God's calling your family to, which I think is just
And then I
great.
think you have to revisit, check back in.
It's not like you're saying, okay, the rest of my kid's high school career, this is what we're going to do. It's like, let's just keep.
And who are you
tabs.
giving permission to speak into if you feel like that if it's drifting and you might not notice it?
True. That's good. Well, thank you, Amanda, for that question.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. And thank you for everyone who's dropping questions in the chat. We're getting a lot of really good ones, so making our way through them. The next one is from Mandy Jackson here in Kalispell, Montana on YouTube. She wants to know, do you have any plans on writing fiction in the future?
Oh, Mandy Jackson.
I will say there is fiction that is in the works at this moment. That's all I'm going to say. There is
all he's going to say.
some works of fiction that is happening, and that is exciting.
Yeah,
so
it's very exciting.
Do you like fiction?
It depends.
On what? When was the last time you read a novel?
Probably a year ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Who is it by?
Kristen Hanna. She wrote.
She's fantastic. The Four
Winds and
The Great Alone.
The Nightingale.
The Nightingale.
Holly Furtick told me about The Nightingale, and I think my struggle is there's so many books that I don't know, like, is this actually a good book or is this something that's going to be horrible?
That woman will make you cry, though.
Yes, she'll make you cry, but it's helpful to have like people like Holly who has like, she has book clubs, so it's like she'll recommend certain things, so you know, okay, this is a great book, but I am learning to be a better reader. But
good question.
Thank you, Mandy Jackson.
Great one. All right. Next up, we have Noah DiCaprio on Instagram, and they would like to know, how do you navigate without feeling guilty while someone in your family is passing away?
Oof. That's a tough question. When someone's super sick, man, you have to, that's a journey that is so unique to every situation. So for example, when my dad got sick and died over the course of a year, we were across the state. So we knew there was for that season, there was going to be more traveling to fly and be with him. And of course, we didn't know it was going to be a year. We thought it would be another 2 years before he went to be with Jesus, but we knew it was likely ending up there without a miracle.
Yeah.
So we knew there was going to be a lot more travel, but we also knew that some wise counsel was given to me. And the wise counsel was, you're not down 100 points in the bottom of the ninth trying to come back, meaning I had fought for and prioritized a relationship with my dad over the course of my life that I wasn't trying to like make up for lost time.
Right.
So I wasn't going to drop everything and every week be commuting, and he wouldn't have wanted that either.
Right.
So there were more trips than normal. I was trying to be there more than normal, like anybody would. That being said, I wasn't trying to work my way out of debt relationally with him.
Right.
So
it was just being with him. You weren't trying to do something. You were just you were trying to just be there.
And that advice was good advice, because I think by nature I would have thought my love language is showing up, being there. So I would have I would have probably to a fault been there more even than I should have, because I would have been trying to like overcompensate. And so I think that advice was like, hey, that's a good point.
Yeah.
We've had a whole wonderful life of friendship. And so this is now just whatever it is going to be a cherry on the top and not, some extra penance paid.
Yeah.
So that was good advice. And I would, give that, not knowing everyone's, of course, unique situation, but,
I know.
But it was very hard being far away in that sense.
Yeah.
And that's my only real experience in that way.
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't really know.
Yeah.
If I have anything to add. My only question, Noah, is it Noah DiCaprio or Noah DiCaprio?
Oh, you want to know if this is someone related to Leonardo?
No, I'm just wondering, because It just sounds very official, like Noah DiCaprio.
I think Noah DiCaprio
Noah
sounds.
DiCaprio.
I think it's Leonardo's cousin. Obviously. And don't tell me anything otherwise.
Thank you for the question, Noah.
You got it. I will keep silent. No word on that. But John Doty online would like to know if you could go back and re-preach a sermon series with new perspective, which one would you choose and why?
Well,
John,
I can at any point.
you can do whatever you want, and you have.
We could. We have reprised.
You in 5 years.
You in 5 years. We've reprised. I think I've done one other one.
Yes.
That we revisited. Someone just recently told me they really want us to bring back Sometimes Always Never, a series on the will of God.
Mm-hmm.
And multiple people have told me they want to reprise Chasing Huckleberries, which was a fun series we did.
That was so fun.
Which is a really funny series because I hear about it all the time, traveling. People talk about Chasing Huckleberries, which is just the weirdest thing because it was such a funny, series, a literal preaching series all about huckleberries.
So good. And every time we pick them, it's always a reminder of that series, but
the
looking
spiritual
for the
lesson
word of God
you learn
and
from a huckleberry.
Yeah, the Holy
What
Spirit.
would you say would be a series you would want us to revisit with fresh lessons?
I mean, oh my gosh, I would say every single one of them, but the one that comes to my mind is microphone, where you went through a whole bunch of different things as the microphone that God allows us to have. So pain is a microphone, parenting is a microphone, whatever all the ones were. But I remember that was powerful, and I remember the visual of that. A red microphone was just really cool. But
it was like an old school.
Yeah,
we powder coated it red.
I don't know. I feel like you could do a spinny wheel, and anyone that comes up would just be amazing.
I really enjoyed.
How about you?
Breaking Camp, 2 Corinthians 5. We did a whole series on 2 Corinthians 5.
I feel like that is one we've talked about doing again.
Breaking Camp was all about death.
Yeah.
What happens when the tent, because the Bible calls our bodies a tent. What happens when the tent comes down? And lessons we need to know about Breaking Camp. The creative on it was so cool. It was all woodsy, National Park Service, PSA style.
We should bring it back this next year.
I don't know. I have to feel it, but I think that could be fun.
I feel it.
You feel it? If you feel it, we're doing it. We could also do another fun one I really enjoyed preaching was Bread and Circuses.
Mm-hmm. That was right after Lenny Went to Heaven.
That was the first series we preached after Lenny Went to Heaven, about the ways that the enemy tries to distract us in order to destroy us.
Yeah.
The Bread and Circuses.
Yeah.
Those are both from that year, actually. It's funny that Bread and Circuses and Breaking Camp were from that year.
Well, that came directly from just your decision to go deep on what the heck happens when you die. And I think that was very helpful for us together.
2 Corinthians
and
5
as a family,
is such a great passage on death.
Good. It's so good.
I was just texting with a friend whose son went to be with Jesus this year, and he was telling me how much 2 Corinthians 5 has been encouraging him. And I told him there was no part of Scripture that so stimulated my curiosity and helped my heart at the same time when I read 2 Corinthians 5.
Yeah.
Because it just puts death in such a, I don't know, not it's not a good thing because it's still an enemy, but it just shows you how God in his sovereignty overrides to make death serve his purposes in that way. And it really encouraged my heart. So, but I also have loved every series uniquely in some season or another for what they've.
It always feels like the best when we're in it. Like it feels this is the most incredible thing.
And I get emotional when we finish them. Like I loved our Pioneer series through Hebrews 11.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Firebrand series that we were in last year or 2 years ago now. Just fun living in it.
Last year?
Oh, yeah.
That was last year.
Yeah.
2023? Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Thank you, John Doty. We love you.
All right. Next up, Jen Velarde from Canada on YouTube wants to know, how should I respond with grace and truth to church leaders who think that people who have tattoos and piercings shouldn't minister?
Tell us.
Well, I would never speak about another church's conviction. To me, that's a non-issue, you know? I mean, obviously, we don't lead in a way that would discourage someone from serving with a tattoo or piercing. Of course, if you feel called to the church, then you want to, you know, honor your leaders no matter what. But if it's enough of an issue for you where you feel like you're not comfortable continuing on there, honor them as you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you just have to ask yourself, how much is it a deal breaker for you?
Yeah.
That to me is a little funky or a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously those pastors have strong thoughts about that.
Mm-hmm.
I would be more curious about why that for them is such a hard deal break. You know, what such a challenging issue, you know, so maybe
I would also consider, like, what are they passionate about? Like, what are they, what's their mission? How they want to reach people, how they want to preach the gospel, that would be my, like,
and if you're
question.
passionate about that enough to where you can swallow the other issue, then that's not a big deal. But I would ask in a non-threatening, non-condescending way for them to share their heart with you on why that's a problem, you know?
Yeah.
Ask for some time with your pastor or leaders that, hey, just help me see this. Like, I don't fully understand that. I know the tattoo thing is a divisive thing. Every time I peek at, you know, here and there, you'll see the comments when you see a clip go up or whatever. And you do see that come up for people, like they have a real, like the funny one that always makes me laugh is like, someone will say like, I hope those tattoos were BC, you know, like I hope those tattoos all were there before you got saved. You better not have gotten inked.
Where do you think this is coming from? Is it because in the Old Testament it says to not, like, mark your body?
Yeah,
or okay,
probably the book of Leviticus, which is a different thing. It was marking for the dead. It was like a form of worship, you know?
And that seems to be like an issue where it's something that maybe was cultural for the day.
Well, if you are going to abide by that, you also can't eat shellfish. You know, you have to, because it's part of the ceremonial law. So the ceremonial law was nullified when the New Testament was inaugurated.
Yeah.
So when the veil tore from top to bottom, the ceremonial law was canceled. Not the 10 Commandments still stand.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus still said, it is written, you know, he still points us to the 10 Commandments being kept not as a means of salvation, but these are still God's principles.
Yeah.
But the ceremonial law, to have any basis of that, like all the fights that broke out in that Paul addressed in Galatians, you know, about this, meat sacrifice idols, this, that, and the other. He's like, one day is as good as another. You know, like that's all ceremonial law. We're not bound in Christ to the ceremonial law anymore.
Right, because all of that, the tradition, the law, the things that we needed to do, or they needed to do, was what Jesus came to put an end to. And by grace, you're saved, not through works and all of that.
Yeah, so to pick and choose from those would be
certain things that you can't do this, you can't do this. Yeah. That's just interesting to me.
I would be curious where that comes from. And obviously, tattoos, piercings, you know, they're a cultural phenomenon. You know, I think they're less of I mean, how you wear your clothing, you know, it's just, but it seems like that it's a philosophy of ministry issue. So I would try and hear their heart. And like Jennie was saying, I would ask, am I passionate enough about the church's mission and vision that I can die to myself on that other issue, you know, where you would just cover up your tattoos, I guess, to serve?
Yeah.
Is what they're asking for.
But it's interesting because I feel like nowadays more people have tattoos than people who don't have tattoos. But like even in our circle, like I feel like most people have at least a tiny one.
Like the new tattooed is not being tattooed.
Yeah.
Wow, so edgy. Look at that. Look at that bare flesh. Yeah. So maybe, like Jennie said, you have to ask yourself the question. And if I do feel called to leave, always leave with honor. Always leave graciously. Always leave, you know, get them a gift. Thank them for their role in your life. If you do feel called and inclined to find another church. And if you don't, then stay there and honor while you stay.
Yeah. Amen. Well, thank you, Jen, for that question.
All right. Next up, we've got, how do you decide when it's time to move, jobs, cities, etc., when there isn't necessarily anything wrong? I'm fearful to make a change and can't tell where the fear is coming from. That's from Lizzie Bowman on Instagram.
Lizzie.
How do you decide when it's time to go? I mean, I think I've always felt like
To leave to a new city.
God calls you to something, not just from something.
Yeah.
You don't often find, I mean, the exception being, Philip didn't really have a great understanding of where he was going, but generally speaking, you're called to a new land, to a new place. So
Well, like Abraham.
he didn't know where he was
didn't know
going.
where exactly, but he knew, but God said, I'm going to take you to a place that I will show you. So there was a drawing to what God's will was for him. And there's so many different examples of that. But yeah, I would say, what is God calling you to? And also, you mentioned fear. And there's a fear about that. And I think that God's peace leads us also. And I don't think that something that's causing us to be fearful is what we should be led by.
And what I mean by this, I don't think God wants you running from something.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're leaving because you have, friction with someone, or, you're just dissatisfied, like, I think sometimes we can short circuit the staying power of being somewhere. And we can end up leaving a hard season that could end up becoming a wonderful wilderness season, So I think I would just ask some hard questions of like, am I being called to something? Am I running from something?
Yeah.
And if either of those, if you can't say I'm being called to something, or if you are honest enough to admit I am running from something, then maybe God would have you to stay put until you get further direction. Because I do think there is a sense in which boredom or frustration can cause us to short circuit what could have been, hey, had I just stayed put. We went to that mine where they had tried to find silver for a decade and didn't find any, but they ended up giving up the mining rights, and then another company bought it, and they just went a little bit deeper and stayed a little longer, and they hit pay dirt, and it's one of the most productive silver mines in the U.S. history.
Yeah.
So I just wonder how many times we missed out on what could have been something great because we just were impatient or in a hurry.
And the work that God wants to do in you in the midst of that waiting and in the midst of the frustration can be so powerful. But also going back to the question of kids in sports and how we were talking about listening for the Holy Spirit to speak to you and for God to lead you in the way that you should go. And I think that with the community, we were talking about community, that's also so huge. If you're in a small group, if you're serving, and the people around you, if they see things that you might not see, it's just so wise to let in. The Bible says in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. So letting those right voices in your life to encourage you to say, hey, maybe it's good to stay, or maybe it is good to go. And so
I think the other side of it is when we were in California and we eventually made the move up here, it began to feel more and more like it would have been sin not to go. Like, even though we really didn't want to, we were comfortable and happy and being used by God where we were. But we felt such a sense of, even though we didn't know all the details, kind of like Abraham, how's this all going to work? How's it going to last? How are we going to do all this?
Where is this Montana we are going to?
Yeah, yes. When you say Montana, tell me about it again. Only use words like a third grader would use. But we felt such an overwhelming sense of it's God's plan that if we didn't do it, I think, even though we were afraid, so don't let your fear keep you back either.
And there was risk. We were risking, and we didn't know the outcome.
But we felt like, the Bible says, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. We started to feel like this was the good God was calling us to, even though there's fear.
Right.
And we weren't running from something, and we weren't just bored by any means. And we had a sense of that magnetic pull towards true north in our hearts. And so I think then we ventured out.
Yeah.
So I if that helps, of course, it's see the Sometimes Always Never series. There are things in Scripture that are sometimes God's will, things in Scripture that are always God's will, and things that are in Scripture that are never God's will.
Yeah.
So that's why I preach those series. So maybe we should revisit that series. Or you could just Google it, listen to the old ones. So there you go.
All right.
Thank you, Lizzie.
We are quickly approaching the end of the hour.
No,
do y'all
we can
want to do
keep
one
going.
more?
Let's
You want
just-
to keep going?
I mean, if we have more questions, sure.
Yeah, we have plenty of questions. All right. Next up, Kevin Lopez on YouTube wants to know, who are the 3 most influential people in your life and why?
Wow.
Hey.
Great question.
Wow. Thank you, Kevin. Where's Kevin from? Did
Can
you
we
say?
agree
You can say.
that our kids are off limits?
Yes.
Okay, because that feels important.
The 3 most influential people in our lives.
But we're not gonna hurt the
Like,
feelings
not
of our
family?
kids by picking one kid. And it's,
Right.
it's
and
assumed
not family.
it's assumed that you're my most important person. Period.
Yeah. We're assuming that.
Okay, so 3 not family.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick my dad immediately. Break the rule.
Family.
I know, but I broke
He's
the
the
rule.
most influential.
I mean, yes, for sure. My dad, Louis Giglio. I'm gonna do 2. Do you have any? You're gonna get out there before I.
Gosh, that's really hard. Choosing anything is so hard. I just was realizing, I was reading about the prefrontal cortex today, and how
some
that's
light reading.
and that's
Just
how
reading about the prefrontal cortex.
that's
today?
like where you plan and where you prepare, and that's like where all that comes from or makes decisions. It's the decision making part of your brain. And like, maybe my prefrontal cortex hasn't, something's wrong with it, because I struggle with decisions and I struggle with planning. But anyways, 3 most favorite
So
or
you were
3
reading
most
an article about your
influential-
prefrontal cortex on the plane today. I was watching a YouTube video about Kevin Costner telling why he quit Yellowstone. That's the difference. You using your flight
Ooh,
better than I was.
controversial.
Yeah, Outsville.
Wow. It's going to change the game for everybody.
Yes.
Okay, so, oh gosh. I mean, we just spent time with Lenya Heitzig, and I was just reminded how much she has made such an impact on my life in being in ministry, and her design and interior design skills, and who she is, and her buoyancy and resilience. And I'd say her. I would also, I don't know.
Yeah, because Skip would definitely be on my short list too. Pastor Skip,
Yeah,
her husband, is just solid, steady Bible teaching, exposition,
yeah.
so strong. So you've got one.
Obviously, my mom is very impactful in my life. She mommed me my whole life, and I love her so much. I'd say also Larissa Lusko, your dad's wife. She has been. I mean, I've known her for 22 years, and she has definitely been a consistent, faithful human in my life, speaking God's truth over me and encouragement.
And I did put you on my list, but you didn't put me. I'm just throwing that out
You
there.
are on my list.
Okay.
You're number 1.
Number 1.
Number 1.
That's nice.
Number 1.
All
Thank you,
right.
Kevin Lopez.
Yes, and he actually was from Washington, D.C., I was told.
Washington, D.C.
Yes, Washington,
That's
D.C.
I
amazing.
love Washington, D.C.
Hmm.
I was just thinking when we were walking in the Denver airport today, and I saw a gate that said it was DCA, Washington, D.C.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, I miss being in D.C. I haven't been there in a while.
You used to have a friend there and you would go visit him.
I love running in D.C. We ran, remember, it was my birthday, and we ran from the Kennedy Center to the Capitol, and then we ran back along the reflecting pool and ended at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah.
And it was your long run. So you needed to get, I think you ran 10 miles a day or
Well,
8 miles a
because
day.
I think I was running the half marathon like a week and a half later.
So it was a long run. So we were running and we just went and went and went. It was my happiest because you were running so long and we ran, and then you ended and you were like, I'm done. Like it was like a light going off. And it was like, we weren't back yet, but you were like, nope. And you just dug your heels in and walked the rest of the way. And I was like, this is so silly. You end the run at where you're going back to, but you were like, my Nike app said I'm done,
Yep,
and I'm done.
I'm done. I'm not doing any more.
But running in DC right now would be so cold.
Yeah.
They get cold winters.
We were there in the winter, and I remember it being freezing.
When it gets cold there. But you can, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Kevin.
And
thanks
man,
for the question.
there's some good cupcakes in Washington, D.C. You know where I'd go for cupcakes in D.C.? Not Georgetown cupcakes. That's where everybody goes. I'd go to Baked and Wired.
Mm.
That is a great cupcake in
What
Georgetown.
about Levain?
That's a good bakery, but that's for chocolate chip cookies, and it's from New York City. They just have an installation in DC.
Oh, I did not know.
But Georgetown, Baked and Wired, they have a chai tea cupcake. Change your life.
I want one right now.
You want to swallow that. That's very good.
I want that.
That's the Esau joke. When Esau saw Jacob's beans, he literally says, "I want to swallow that." He didn't
Not
even
even
say
eat
chew.
it.
He just said, in the Hebrew, it's "I want to swallow that." I always laugh thinking about Esau trading his birthright
Bless his heart.
for a cupcake.
Did Esau end well?
No.
But didn't he forgive his brother?
Tears or no tears. Well, yeah, they patched things up.
But he didn't end well.
He didn't end well. Tears or no tears, he couldn't get it back. I would not say Esau ended well.
Mm.
He's held up in the New Testament as a picture of a person whose God is their stomach.
Wow.
That's not my definition of ending well.
Oh, man.
Short-sighted.
Is there any hope for any of us?
I love how the Message translation says, beware of the Esau syndrome, trading God's lifelong gift to satisfy a short-term appetite.
Wow.
And though he regretted it later, tears or no tears, he couldn't get it back.
Wow, the Esau syndrome.
Watch out for the Esau syndrome. You know, when the New
It's a good
Testament
word.
holds your life up and says, don't do this, that's not good.
Mm-mm.
And it's not ending well. But yes, Esau and Jacob did patch things up because Esau had swore that he was going to kill Jacob when he saw him next.
So,
He said, I'm going to kill that man. That's why
Yeah.
Jacob ran away.
and then when he came back, sent his kids and wives
And a bunch of gifts.
in front of him.
And Esau's like, what's all this? He's like, oh, I just wanted to give you this gift. You know, the book of Proverbs does say a gift pacifies anger. And it seems like it worked, but they didn't. They went their separate way. They weren't having Thanksgiving together. You
So,
know?
do you think someone like that goes to heaven? Obviously, we don't know.
Whoa, Jennie Lusko.
I'm just wondering, I think of Judas. I think of guys who
We can confidently say no to Judas in heaven.
really.
Well, it
What if
says
he was
it would
sorry?
be better than he never had been born. Judas's name, according to Jesus, is the son of perdition.
I guess I just, after seeing The Chosen, which we obviously haven't gotten to all that yet, but I just think, man, I just feel so bad for him. He just took some wrong turns.
You're such a sweetheart. You know,
I mean, he
you know
did
what-
horrible things,
you know
but I
what
wonder.
Dante. You know what Dante said about Judas, right?
No.
That for his sin, he will be chewed forever in the mouth of Satan, but never swallowed.
Wow. Who's Dante?
He wrote the Inferno. It's not true. We can't prove that. But that's what he said. I mean,
Okay,
Judas
well.
is probably the one example. Here's the thing. Here's the calming thing. We never know where someone ended because
Yeah.
like the thief on the cross, even if in their last breath they trusted Jesus, they
Mhm.
would be saved.
Yeah.
So is Judas in heaven?
And we don't know because
We
some
don't.
people, even
We
on their
don't know.
deathbed, may not be able to speak, but they might still be able to think.
Absolutely.
And they might be able to think Jesus' name.
The moment they
We
trust
don't
Christ,
know
they can be
that.
saved. You never know. You never know where someone went. Probably except for Judas. Because Jesus called him literally the son of perdition. But had he,
But he did
just
call-
before he hung himself, trusted Christ, of course, he would be in heaven too.
Yeah. Because
But yeah.
Peter, he said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." So
That's not good.
that's not good
No,
either.
it's not good. Peter's in heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the job at the gates with the clipboard.
Okay, sorry for that tangent.
Who's Dante?
I just needed to know.
Just one question. Who is Dante?
Now, who is this Dante that you speak of?
Who is this Dante you keep talking about? That's really funny.
Sorry, I have to collect myself.
I
That
only
was
have one question.
incredible.
And it would be, who is this Dante?
so earnest
You
too.
keep talking.
I love it. It was
Wait, is
Wow.
it chewed forever in his mouth but never swallowed, or digested forever in his stomach but never processed?
Eliminated?
Never eliminated.
Oh gosh.
It's one of the two. We'll have to go to ChatGPT. It's either chewed forever but not swallowed, or in the stomach forever but not digested. I think I might be mixing metaphors because of that creature in Star Wars that Boba Fett falls into.
Oh, and
You will be just swallowed forever in the mouth of this beast, right? Isn't that like Empire Strikes, Return of the Jedi?
I believe you.
Boba Fett, where's Boba Fett? Han Solo still doesn't have his vision back?
Mm.
Then that's got to be Return of the Jedi.
You kind of have Han Solo vibes right now.
Well, that's the nicest thing anyone's
yes,
ever
it is
said to
Return
me.
of the Jedi.
Is it?
Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Whoever, I guess I had that
It
question.
was your
That one
question.
came to you from Jennie Lusko right
you
here in the
thank
studio.
yourself?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The next one comes from Lumberjill Lauren on YouTube here in Kalispell. And she wants to know, what's your least favorite thing about Montana?
Wow.
It's so cold.
That's it for you? Just the cold? You're just going to out Montana like that?
It's a long winter.
I would say it's not the least favorite thing. There can be, and I've heard Pastor Jabin talking about it. He preached at our church as we're recording this just this last Sunday. There can be that poverty mindset, that scarcity mindset, that fear-based mentality, that kind of small thinking that can creep into how things are run, how businesses operate. I think that when I bump up against that, it always feels that small fear-based scarcity.
Totally.
So I'd put that high on the list. I mean, look, the list of what I love about Montana could fill 3 books. A lot of things I love about Montana.
I see that.
But that
Montana by Levi Lusko.
Montana, a list of things I love, 3 volumes. But that would be for me one thing.
I agree. I agree with that. I would change that to be my number 1.
Not the cold.
I have a hard time being cold, which is funny that God would bring us to a place where you're just cold a lot. But I love it. I like 4 seasons is what I like, because I grew up in a place that there was not 4 seasons, really.
The lack of a Trader Joe's. I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, that's also mine. Thanks for reminding me.
That's also your number 1. Okay, what's your favorite thing about Montana? My favorite thing is that you're in it.
I'm wherever you are.
Maybe it's just this beat that's going to my soul, but I'm just feeling really happy
What
that you're
beat?
here. Exactly. Well, I always hear music when you're around.
Wherever you are, I am.
The beautiful big skies and the mountains. There's so much to love about this state. It's a treasure.
I feel like we have learned so much about being Montaners, you know? Like we didn't really do any of the things that we do now, like hiking.
I skied since I was 2.
True.
I grew up in Colorado, so a lot of the things were still a part of my life.
Well, not in my life, but
Not in my life. It's getting to your head. It's getting late. Your morals.
the beat is getting
All right. Next up, we have Floating Through Fields, floating with a D, on Instagram. How do you build
Facebook
community?
questions? Have we been prejudiced against Facebook?
It's possible. I
We need
see
to
on
give
my
Facebook
list
some
here.
love.
Let's
Okay,
see.
please.
Floating through fields.
Yes, floating through fields
through
on Instagram. And while y'all answer this one, I'll look for a Facebook one.
Okay.
How do you build community as an introvert?
You got to play pickleball, obviously. Probably the best thing I can say about pickleball is
the community.
the community. What a great way to get that. Anybody can play it because it's a plastic ball you're hitting with a paddle, and getting into a league. I joke, but that's one of the most redeeming things about that sport. You can just show up and play. Small groups, right? That's what's amazing about the church is you just have a built-in engine. Get on a team at your church. You're going to meet other people.
Even if it's not something they're super passionate about, like you'll get to be with people, and then you see where God leads you from there. But that's huge.
I did a couple teachings a while back called How to Be a Friend and the Need for Friendship. The series was called Friendship Recession. I did one teaching just like with some very specific actionable things that you could do to help get friends. But the Bible says he who has friends has to be friendly. So I think just put yourself out there, try. And the church has such a good mechanism. It's one of the only segments of our population where people are not losing out on friendships. Every gender, every race, all across our country, every socioeconomic part of the spectrum is doing worse at friendship And the notable exception is people who regularly go to church. It is one part of our culture where you still have a built-in place to meet people, because everything else you can DoorDash, everything else can be, Instacarted, everything else can be digitized. Eventually there will be a DMV experience you go to on your phone, it's all going mobile.
Yeah.
But church is a place where you can still show up and meet people and get into friendships. And there's an expectation of, we want you to be here. We want to get to know you. And that's so good for your soul.
Yeah.
Because loneliness is as bad for you as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Dang.
So introvert or not, you need people. It's not good for man or woman to be alone. Get into friendships. And the church is God's solution for the loneliness, which is not good for your soul.
Yeah. And I think being intentional, especially when it's uncomfortable. Our daughter Olivia was telling us how it's been so good, but also so hard at college, just taking the initiative and maybe staying around longer at the cafeteria and meeting people, or things that maybe feel a little bit uncomfortable, but have been so sweet because she's been meeting such great people. And I think that that's part of it as an introvert for me. And I think an introvert is the kind of person that's refreshed when they're alone. And I'm an introvert. I also love being with people, but I get super refreshed and recharged when I'm by myself. But I also get refreshed and recharged when I'm with my people. And so I don't know how that works. Maybe I'm 50-50, but intentionality is what is so huge. And that's something actually that I am trying to grow in and asking God to help me in, because I have always had people in my life who initiate, hey, let's go to coffee. Hey, let's do this. And I feel like that has kind of been me lately of initiating that. And I'm learning. I think we're always learning.
It's good.
I love it. All right. I found us a Facebook question
Facebook
to help us wrap up.
I haven't been on Facebook in forever.
All right. Donna Nash
You're on
Facebook
right now.
wants to know, what is your vision for Movement Conference long term? Bigger, multiple locations? ?
Donna Nash.
Yeah, we always have more than we're doing in our heart. Things we're thinking about, praying about. That has been on the list. Another movement conference, another alternate location for it. We've talked about that. I think continuing to scale it and grow it for sure is right where we're at. Just seeing something built from the ground and grow. And we're only this is year 4 this year. So, 22, 23, 21, 22, 23, 24, and now, or 22, 3, 4, and now 5 will be our 4 years of movement conference. And so we've learned so much. Our team has gotten so good at it. We've improved it every year. So I think right now we're at the place of still pulling off the conference in our hearts.
Yeah.
And we've seen a great experience every single year.
Yeah.
And without tipping our hand to some of the announcements, we have some significant changes in the works for movement conference that will improve it. Like, I think this is going to be the best year we've ever had by a country mile.
I agree. Yeah. I think our vision is that whatever location we're at is just packed to the gills of youth and people who need to know that their life has purpose and meaning right where they're at as a youth. And I believe that that's going to be eventually.
Yeah. So there's other thoughts and prayers and things we've, of course, talked a lot about, but that would be for sure it. So get registered for movement conference. Let's do one more question.
Thank you, Donna.
All right. One more question. Give me one. All right. For our last question, also from Facebook. I lost it. 1 second. Shelby wants to know, what's your favorite Bible stories?
Hi, Shelby. Well, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we?
Not with me.
No, we were talking about, we were talking about Ruth, and I told you that Ruth is my favorite. So I would have to say Ruth is just my favorite. Short and sweet and all about Jesus and redemption and beauty and hope and all the things. I just love the book of Ruth.
It's so seasonal for me. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I mean, goodness gracious. They came out of the fire. They didn't even smell like smoke.
Oh my gosh.
You can't stand in front of a
Joseph.
fire for 5 minutes and not smell like smoke. That's the biggest miracle.
Yeah.
Coming through the Red Sea and there was no mud on their shoes. That's ridiculous. It's a river bottom. You lose a flip flop walking in a river bottom. I like the little meta details of all these stories.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. That's true.
153 fish after Jesus appeared in John 21 to the disciples
counted
at the
those, do you think?
breakfast. Yeah, 153 fish.
Did Peter count those or Matthew?
I'm going to say my favorite is like the peculiarities of the details. His spear had what weighed as much as a weaver's beam. Like, what is a weaver's beam? I like these little things that David chopped Goliath's head off with his own sword and put it in his own tent. It's like, wait a minute. And then it says later when David took Jerusalem, he brought the head of the Philistine with him. Some people think he buried it at a little hill, and that's how we got the name of Skull Hill.
Oh.
Some people say that David buried Goliath's head at a hill that got nicknamed Goliath of Gath, Golgotha.
Whoa.
That perhaps it's called Skull Hill because he buried the giant's head there. He
Wow.
kept it for a while, though. So years and years went by, and David still had Goliath. I mean, that was quite the rabbit's foot keychain.
How many years?
A lot of times. He was in the
So it was a
cave.
skull.
He was in the cave for like a decade, hiding from Saul, and he had it in his luggage.
Wow.
The sword, though, went to Nob, because remember, it was there. The priest had it, and David was on the run and said, I need a sword. He said, all I have is a sword of Goliath of Gath. And David said, there is none like it. Give it to me. Give it to me. And he took the sword with him, but the head he had still with him. Is that weird?
Mm-hmm.
But then he took it to Jerusalem when he took over the Jebusite city of Jerusalem that became Jerusalem. Because remember, Joab climbed up the water shaft.
I roughly remember that.
David brought the head with him. I'm going to say 20 years he had that
Wow.
head before he
That's
buried
wild.
it.
That's a thing that was people did though, right?
Keep the head of a giant you killed?
Keep the head of like someone that you killed.
I don't know if that's a thing. I think David was just proud of it.
Wow.
So I don't know if I would say my favorite story. I would say my favorite details are the weird ones in the stories.
You do love the weird details.
I like them a lot.
And you find them and then you preach them.
It makes me happy. I also like when David's men were treated badly by like Nahash, the Ammonite king, and they cut all of their tunics right above their buttocks and they cut their beards to humiliate them. And David was very angry.
Makes sense. Why he would be angry.
It's a funny detail. They came back mooning everybody all the time. David's like, that can't be. And he went to war over it.
Wow.
But I also really just love Paul. I'm right now preaching so much about Paul, so I really enjoy the journeys of Paul. All of his preaching around the Roman Empire,
Yeah.
all of his walking, all of his exploits.
I feel like your brain, you have like areas in your brain that light up with weird details. And you also have a place where they just sit right
Don't you
perfectly in the
love
place where you'll need them at just the right moment.
the maps in the back of the Bible, like Paul's journey, seeing everywhere he went, all the things he did?
I do.
I've been loving that Paul's final journey is not called a missionary journey. Missionary journey 1, 2, 3, then it says journey to Rome. And they don't even call his maybe most important mission trip ever a mission trip
Why do you think that is?
because it was just him going to Rome. But for Paul, the joke is everything was a mission trip. He didn't know how to get out of it.
They really
then
got it
without
wrong.
I don't know. I think it's pretty cool that maybe the most important mission work we do won't be called a mission trip.
Wow.
But if we're just
Sheesh.
willing to be used.
It's really good, Levi. Let's go.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. If you're still here live, if you're not, if you're still here not live, thanks for
Thanks
making
for
it to the end.
listening. Yeah. What a fun time together. I had fun. Did you have fun?
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah.
If you didn't make it to the end, you're not hearing this anyway. So, but thank you, but thank you too. Thank you also for listening to the portion that you did.
Wow.
We'll do this again sometime.
Yeah.
How did you like it doing a live stream like this?
I like it. Thank you to our team who made this happen.
To the whole team working hard to make it happen.
Beautiful team. I love it. I love you.
Jax,
You're my favorite.
this was great.
Jax,
it was
we love you. Thank
so
you.
wonderful. Love you
Okay.
guys too. Thank you so
Until
much.
next time, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to swing by levilusko.com and jennielusko.com to see what's going on in our world.
And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And in the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media.
Jennie and Levi Lusko out.